When application completion rates drop, something is off. Students aren't getting the support they need, and that's affecting your numbers. Enter Element 451's AI assistants. They step in where students struggle, offering real-time answers and advice, guiding them through every step. Learn how AI assistants can boost your enrollment outcomes. Visit element451.com/AI team to learn more.
Welcome to The Application, a podcast focused on actionable takeaways to help you level up your marketing and enrollment management game. I'm your host, Dr. Allison Tercio, Assistant Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing at Siena College. Join me every Tuesday for discussions with some of the best minds in higher ed marketing and enrollment management. The Application is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal faves linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Today, we're tackling a critical topic, meaty actually, as Kristin and I were just talking about, how enrollment marketing can and should align with institutional strategy and brand. With the increasing complexity of the higher ed landscape, it's never been more important for enrollment marketers to play a key role in brand messaging and awareness. Joining me today is Kristin Nichols, a seasoned higher ed marketing professional with over 20 years of experience. She's been instrumental in shaping the marketing strategies at some of the top institutions in the Northeast, including UMass and Bentley. Kristin, it's great to have you on the show.
Oh, it's so nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm so glad to be talking about this topic. But before we jump into the deep stuff, I want to ask, how do you manage balancing such a dynamic career in higher ed marketing with life at home, especially with two young kids, mom to mom?
I like scrunchies and cherry flavored chapstick mostly. But all joking aside, I've always been motivated by my professional identity. It's just a huge part of who I am. And I became a mom right before my 38th birthday. So my professional identity was like a primary marker for many of my adult years. So I think it comes down to support. And for a while, when I was a newlywed, my husband was working in Boston and arriving home around 8:30 each night. And I was in an enrollment marketing role, still recruiting in California, Connecticut, Georgia, and DC, Virginia. So,
wow, that's quite a territory.
It was a lot. So it wasn't really realistic to start a family given our professions. But when I began at UMass Lowell, it was really wonderful to witness working parents who are able to manage both their profession and parenthood exceptionally well. And it was refreshing. So I was finally able to see myself doing both. And it was because of the culture of support there for working moms and working parents. And it was just understood that people needed to have autonomy and flexibility. And that was wonderful. So I had a supervisor there, Bryce Hoffman, who just trusted me to do the work and lead the enrollment marketing charge. And even before the pandemic, I was given the opportunity to work remotely one day a week after my daughter was born. And it was it was very progressive. Bryce understood what we needed, and he was an exceptional department leader and supporter for working parents. So there was no micromanagement, and I firmly believe that this is what we need. So I have that now. And anyone who has worked for me, regardless of their status, whether they have children or not, I give them what they need in order to get the work done. And certainly there are times when folks are needed to be on campus and needed to be physically present. But for the most part, as long as people are doing their work, doing it well, staying in touch, That's key for me and has been since becoming a mom 6 years ago.
Great advice for how we should lead our teams. This is not an easy job. It's not an easy industry, and we need to recognize that as leaders. What keeps you in this industry despite all of the challenges? I mean, work-life balance is one, but there's many challenges. It's so competitive. This is a stressful industry to work in. What keeps you here?
Yeah, it's really stressful nowadays, isn't it? It's changed quite a bit in the past few years, and higher education marketing is my calling. I've said that often, and I don't really want to market anything else. I mean, we market opportunity, a brighter tomorrow, a celebratory step in someone's life. It doesn't only help them, but it helps their family and their community and our country. You know, we market programs that move research forward so we can prosper as individuals in a society. Like, how cool is that? Like, that's a really cool thing to market. So that's what keeps me in here. But if I'm being completely honest, the past few years have been hard, and I have thought about leaving regularly. And each time I think of leaving, I get sad. And the little voice inside me reminds me that this is where I'm supposed to be. So here I am, at least for the time being.
You're a true believer like me.
Yes.
One of the things that we hear a lot about around enrollment marketing is this idea of being in sync with institutional strategy and the institutional brand. So let's talk about that. What does that look like in practice, and how can enrollment marketers make sure they're not just executing campaigns in a vacuum, but really contributing to the broader goals of the institution?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that looks like all the sub-brands within an institution humming at the same time. So it's that unification, right? So all cylinders are fired, but in a way that looks seamless and perfectly orchestrated. There's a lot to unpack here. So I want to kind of break it down on some ways to kind of tackle this so people can understand and digest it. I think a really smart thing for institutions and marketers to do is, I've said this in other podcasts that I've been on, but I'm going to keep beating this drum. Do an AI audit of your site. Ask AI about your institution, about the various groups, about the research going on there. Keep prompting it with things and see how it responds, and if it's responding accurately to the brand that you have in place. So if it is inaccurate, that means that you have some pages that need to be cut. You have some content on pages that needs to be reworked because it's AI's improperly scraping your site. So that's a really important thing to do. And when you start to improve and edit the web content, of course, start with the high traffic key pages in enrollment and the homepage. And also this will help support SEO and navigation and the overall user experience. And I'm a firm believer in removing PDFs whenever possible. And
Yay.
It should be, it should
Time.
be done. It should be done 95% of the time. Like I haven't found a reason to keep a PDF on a site yet, and just get that content onto the site and out of the PDF. And that'll ensure proper usability, reduce the fragmentation and the decay of the user journey. So, that's kind of the first thing I would recommend that people do.
And I think it makes a lot of sense because enrollment marketers are often the ones who are in charge of a lot of the top level pages of an institutional website. That's one of our big roles. So making sure that the content that we have is reflective of the institution and resonates with our audience, and it's all optimized for the user experience is really important.
Yeah, they're the top pages. I mean, I have yet to find a university or college where after the homepage, the top pages aren't the enrollment pages. So yeah, it's important. And another way to kind of ensure that strong brand on the web is to have one web page dedicated to the news story and press release media hits with one RSS feed to strengthen the brand messaging. And then what you do as enrollment marketers is you link back to that page. So if you're talking about a story and email content or something, you link back. So you keep driving the user back to that page. You're improving the brand messaging because now they're going back to that news page to review the story and also see what else is out there. So it kind of tailors that sub-brand, but brings it all back to the university's overall overarching brand.
You need the stories to do your job too.
Yeah.
So that has the added advantage of your awareness of the best stories, because if enrollment marketers, if we're not being good storytellers about our institution, then we're not doing our jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can craft a story for your audience. It's pretty easy that if there is a story that's being written by a beat writer or someone on your editorial staff that maybe isn't at first glance enrollment focused, try to figure out how to turn it on its head and say, could there be an enrollment angle? And more often than not, you'll find that yes, you can pitch this to a variety of enrollment audiences. Second thing, track in your CRM, of course, but utilize the other web tools like Google Analytics to understand data in relation to the segmented audiences. If you have Site Improve at your institution, it's a powerful way to ensure accessibility and also improve SEO for better reach. And unification can also occur between the brand and sub-brand crafted for enrollment audiences by including the tagline regularly whenever possible. We all know Nike Just Do It because when they pushed that out years ago, they were consistent with the Just Do It message, right? So having your tagline, your brand tagline on those pieces brings it back to that top level and makes the brand recognition prominent.
We just did a market research study. We participated in one, I should say, with ADV Market Research about brand clarity. And one of the findings was where there's brand clarity, there's really great enrollment performance as well, right? So how do you get to clarity? Yeah. And one of the ways we found in the study, the results was, one of the ways is you spend on advertising, because the more you're in front of everybody, of course, there's clarity. But there's also that consistency that you were just talking about. Because if we're consistent and if we can back it up with the stories and the proof, that all brings about clarity as well. So these are really, really good points about, so as enrollment marketers, we're executing brand messaging, right? But also how we do that affects brand awareness and brand reputation at the highest levels. There's a lot of responsibility there.
Completely. And you definitely don't want to be advertising. You don't want to be silent in the advertising space, and you want it to be clear because of the attention span, right? That we all have when we see those ads. You want it to hit somebody over the head, and the sub-brand in enrollment must be done across all pieces within the enrollment department at the institution. This means everything from email templates to print pieces like postcards and program sheets to travel and view books. Social media, written tone needs to be crafted with the enrollment audience in mind. Years ago, I decided to hire a Gen Z person to write in a Gen Z tone, but speak back to the brand where I was, because it was so important. And I didn't feel that my content was really targeting that audience correctly as a 40-something-year-old woman. So I'm not saying you have to necessarily do that, but think about the audience and think about how to build your brand accordingly across all pieces, both written and visual. And Canva is great. I love Canva, and it can be tempting to create things in there and do them on your own and throw them out there. But please ask everyone that's listening to have a review done by the creative team at your institution before setting anything live, to ensure that both the brand and sub-brand unification is there, so that you don't have a miss, and you keep that messaging strong and that awareness in line.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because when it comes down to it, at a lot of schools, whoever's responsible for the enrollment marketing, whether it's in the marketing and public relations sort of area, communication shop, or if it's embedded in enrollment management, we all know that there's so many different models. Everyone does it their own way, honestly. There's no perfect model and there's no one model. I haven't even found one that's perfectly repeated, right? So wherever it is, whoever's responsible for it, and there might not even be someone with that title on your campus, but whoever's doing that is probably reaching more eyeballs with their work than almost anyone else on campus. So if you're responsible for that, and you're the one who's doing all the communications and all of the marketing and all of the advertising to prospective students and families, that's a lot of eyeballs. It's got to be right. It has to be on brand. It has to be on brand in terms of the creative, and it has to be on brand in terms of the message. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's going to look different for different audiences. I mean, for graduate audiences, the sub-brand guidelines need to be more standard and program driven, obviously, with that this is worth it kind of sentiment that drives right back to the brand statement in the guidelines. And for those people pushing out grad brand messaging within an institution, I mean, they're trying to straddle 3 different generations, right? Because Gen Z and millennials are going on to get grad degrees and doctoral degrees and certificates, but Gen Xers are too. I mean, I just got a certificate a few months ago as a Gen Xer. So you can't necessarily get specific towards one generation. So you have to kind of tweak the brand differently and make it about the ROI, but specific to your institution.
Hey, it's Mallory. Element 451 is hosting the AI Engage Summit on October 29th and 30th. This free virtual event brings together leaders, innovators, and many of your favorite Enrollify creators to explore AI's impact on student engagement, enrollment marketing, and institutional success. We're packing the schedule with real examples and case studies, so you leave knowing how to harness AI to drive meaningful change at your institution. Whether you're looking to enhance student outcomes, optimize enrollment marketing, or simply stay ahead of the curve, the AI Engage Summit is your gateway to the next level of higher education innovation. Registration is free. Visit element451.com to save your spot. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, we talk a lot about this. And I was hosting the EduWeb Summit this year, and I'm going to host again next year. It's in Portland in July. So everyone mark your calendars. It's a really great event. And we were talking about what does ROI mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we jump right to, okay, a list of job titles or salary outcomes, but there's so much more to it, right? Like getting a marketing degree at Siena or Bentley or UMass or getting a biology degree, whatever it might be, there's so much more to it than I left and I got a job and I make this much money. Like there's so many more outcomes that we need to be talking about. And I feel like the way you do that is such a great way to be able to reflect the brand, right? Because every school is going to have a different perspective if you think about it from your brand message on what matters, what's really part of this return. You know, it's not just money, but it's like the skills and then the perspective that you have, the type of leader that you become, for instance.
Yeah, I'm actually partnering with my alma mater, Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts right now, and we're taking a look at their strong recognition as a liberal arts institution and pairing that brand promise and message to demonstrate the value of their MBA program. And we're using examples of how students and alumni succeed on both a macro and micro level. And we're demonstrating that throughout the communication plan. And we always point back to that brand promise that a liberal arts education is whole person focused. And the resulted in a strategic, mindful person who can elevate things in whatever field they pursue. So we showcased projects for both small local companies and larger well-known companies that the MBA students worked on and how those students benefited once they graduated. Because the MBA there isn't all about big urban corporations and titles and climbing the corporate ladder. It's also about startups, think tanks, community-based businesses that are economic drivers in urban, suburban, and rural areas. So yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any other examples? I mean, you've been in this field a long time. Any campaigns or strategies that you've seen or you've led that really illustrate this idea of strategic alignment, doing enrollment marketing that, and not even align, honestly, ignites in a way the brand message of the institution?
Yeah, when I arrived at Bryant University, we were charged with building a graduate enrollment sub-brand. There were a half dozen new programs being promoted, and we needed to figure out messaging. So visually, we chose a secondary color palette because Bryant's colors are black and gold, which are very prominent, but sometimes visually they can be a challenge to work with. So really focused on the secondary color palette and the strong ROI message that tied back to their brand reality of developing change makers through sound education and application, and built all the content for each program around that brand reality on the web and in key print pieces. Now, on the undergraduate side, we overhauled the entire suite of materials. We moved away from print pieces showcasing buildings on the covers and leaned into that Bryant Bulldog pride with the university colors of black and gold prominently displayed with the mascot on the covers of the pieces. And like I said, black and gold can be challenging colors to work with throughout a piece.
Yeah.
So we stuck with them for that brand recognition on the covers of the printed pieces, and then leaned into the secondary colors to work the prospective student through the piece. But bulldogs and black and gold were always the first thing that the prospect saw, because that's who Bryant is. And you step foot on Bryant University's campus and you immediately sense the bulldog pride there. Everyone has it. So it was also time to breathe new life into the undergraduate web pages on Bryant's site. So we embarked on a UX discovery and web redesign initiative last fall, and it's still in development. And I won't share much about the project because I don't want to give away the secrets. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Kristin, that's your job. You're on the podcast. You got to share the secrets. Spill the tea.
It's really, really beautiful. It's really beautiful. But again, like black and gold is challenging on a web. So, I mean, if you've got a challenge, regardless of what your brand challenge is, every school has them, do some research. So Purdue is not a school that Bryant competes with, obviously, given their academics, the region of the country that they're located in. They're not really aligned, but they have a black and gold as their colors. So I went on their website to see how they were using black and gold digitally, and go ahead and look at those schools who might have similarities to your brand, but maybe they're not a competitor, and see what they're doing, because you'll gain some really valuable insight by doing things like that. You know, kind of that anecdotal research can always be helpful.
When I asked that question, I definitely was not thinking in terms of the design and the colors, but I can see by choosing that and you're showing the pride, right? Like by being bold about it and being in your face about it, you're showing the pride, and what you wanted to convey was how much pride people have in Bryant. So I think that that's so cool, because I often think in terms of text and like what's being written. And one of the challenges I think all of us as enrollment marketers have is we are at the intersection between what the institution wants to say about itself in like an ideal world and like beautifully perfected messaging words, right? That we all have in our brand platforms and things like that. And then the prospective students and what they want to hear and what resonates with them. So what advice do you have on being that translator? I mean, we really, or maybe the right term is interpreter. I mean, really, that's where we are. We sit at this middle ground, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I have like anything earth shattering to share. It's a balance like anything. So be active listeners. Ask leadership and stakeholders for their thought and their input, because you're going to get buy-in if you do that. That doesn't mean letting them steer things. You know, you're still the brand expert, but asking for their thoughts and their perspective on things, and then layering that and listening to them and being a good partner with all of the research that's out there about, I'm going to use the undergraduate kind of population right now, Generation Z. Use the data available, both institutional data and the national data that various higher ed companies put out each year. Kind of compile that for your institution. Stay on top of trends and stories in the Chronicle and Inside Higher Ed. And then conduct focus groups or hire someone who's good at conducting them to sit with your prospective audience when they're on campus at an open house. And if you do all this, you can go back to the leadership and say, I hear what you need, and here's what we're hearing the students need. Can we find a middle ground, right? That everyone's comfortable with. It's not, everybody will feel a little bit more comfortable if you take that approach.
And then you're hearing both sides. You're being a good
That's
listener on both sides. And you do want the institution and the leaders at the institution to feel good about what you're putting into practice for prospective students. Absolutely. You want to have that connection there. And the other thing that comes to mind for me around this idea of enrollment marketing and our role in building brand awareness is that it's just so hard to build brand awareness for a college or university today. I think one, to students, it's really hard to show them what's different or special because to them, a lot of us look and sound the same. They say that. If you want to look at any research study, they'll say that we're just really not that as original as we think we are in our product or our promotion. But then also, we're not just competing with other colleges for awareness and recognition. Like they are the most sought after audience by every brand out there. I mean, so that's what we're we're competing for their attention, whether it's 3 seconds or 30 minutes with that kind of level of brand who have exponential marketing budgets, right? So what's our role if you're sitting in the enrollment marketing seat in helping to break through in that really crowded space?
It's so difficult, and I feel like it's changing daily. Doesn't it feel like it's changing daily? And I know we keep saying it, and this isn't anything new, and higher ed in general is slow to change when it comes to things like that, but personalizing things needs to be the standard. At some level, every institution needs to be personalizing as much as possible. If you're at an institution that is well-resourced and you're dipping your toes in AI marketing and have systems and people in place, equipped with AI and marketers who are educated on how to drive AI marketing tactics, start marketing to various subgroups within a brand that needs to focus on these 4 key areas of AI marketing: acquisition, retention, growth, and advocacy. So acquisition, retention, growth, and advocacy, and training your AI systems to go after those 4 key things. And I don't know that too many institutions are doing that yet, but the good ones and the well-resourced ones most likely are. And for those of you listening and saying, I don't know how we'd even start, just put that in the back of your mind and just start thinking about different ways that you can do that. So when you are equipped with some AI tools, you can hit the ground running. We also need to, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, to me, it sounds like we were saying is to have really good clarity around your goal, what your objective, what are you trying to accomplish? So I'm trying to acquire new students. And how do you leverage the tools, whether it's a bot on the website or whatever it is you're using to do that and have clarity around those 4 things.
Yep. And it's the life cycle marketing, right? Because once you get them and they're there, how can you interest them in a grad program or a certificate? Or, how can you get them to be engaged donors? Who else can you reach out to beyond them? And this is all stuff that's really hard to do without proper tools. And AI is going to help us do this better as we move forward. So we also need to embrace that not every student needs, can afford, or wants a traditional 4-year college education, So what do they want? What do they want, at the end of the day? And how can we give them what they want and make them feel comfortable? Because everybody's talking about higher ed not being worth the investment, and it is worth the investment. We just need to meet the student where they are. And that's something that I think higher ed's going to pick apart and figure out in the months and years ahead to stay sustainable.
We've been talking a lot about how enrollment marketing advances the larger institutional brand, but I think that's another way that we have a role to play here. We are the ones who are closest to the target market, and so we need to be voices at our institutions for things like that. This isn't what the students are talking about anymore. This isn't how they're thinking anymore. Another example that comes to mind from the EduWeb Summit this past summer is we talk a lot about cost. We talk a lot about return on investment and even value with students when it comes to financial aid, right? You know what they talk about now? Debt. We don't even use those words typically, right? But they don't think, is this degree going to be worth it? They think, can I afford this degree if I have this amount of debt when I leave? That is how they think about it. So we have to go back to the institution, for instance, because we're the ones hearing this, right? We're the ones hearing what the audience is thinking and what's on their minds. And we need to go to the keepers of the brand and say, we're talking about the value of such and such college or university, but we also have to now be thinking about it in this way because this is how the words they're looking for, their language. Like that's our role. It's a two-way street here.
Completely. Yes, absolutely. It's vital that we do that.
All right, last question. If for someone who's listening and maybe they're feeling like what they're doing on the enrollment marketing side is out of sync with the larger brands, or maybe they feel like the larger brand, the broader brand just isn't there, like they don't have clarity on it, so they don't know what they should be doing as enrollment marketers, or maybe there's another challenge. But what's the first thing you think they should do after they listen to this little chat that we've just had?
Take a beat and zoom out. So what I mean by that is you're in the weeds and you need to get out. So get a group of identified individuals from various campus offices together with the brand guide and examples of the enrollment marketing efforts that you have and seeing where the disconnect is. Bring examples from other institutions that appear to be doing a good job with syncing and figuring out what's off on your creative and how to creatively improve sync. So, case competitions are a great way to kind of look at who's doing enrollment pieces well. So start there. Just even if it isn't an institution that aligns with yours, just take a look at the winners out there. They're winning for a reason and see how they're displaying things and work with the people on your campus. And this doesn't have to be an exhaustive thing. It doesn't have to be a big group. I'd argue you probably need about 6 people. Any more would get a little too much, but get the right people around the table to figure it out.
Kristin, this has been such an insightful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with all of us. I'm sure our listeners will walk away with some actionable strategies to better align their enrollment marketing with their institutional strategy and brands. And if anyone would like to collaborate with you or work with you in the future on some of these ideas, how can they find you?
Yeah, thanks. I'm active on LinkedIn. So Kristin Nichols, also nicholshighered.com is my website if you're interested in consulting partnerships of any type. And I'm happy to just talk to people. People reach out to me all the time with questions, and I'll be sure to answer if you do that.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of The Application. If you found today's discussion helpful, please share it with your colleagues, subscribe to the podcast, and leave us a review. We'll be back soon with more insights and strategies to help you stay ahead in the world of higher ed enrollment marketing. Until next time. The Application is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed tech shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea, and they feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Day Kibbolds, Jeremy Tiers, and so many other of your favorite higher ed leaders. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.